Hello and welcome to Aspects of Writing. I'm your host, James Kelly, and my co-host for today is Joyce K. Gatchenberger, and we have Sid Saldana.
That's correct.
Joining us as well, and Chris and Jeffro from CJ Foxx. And we're going to let them explain a little bit about who CJ Foxx is and what it's all about. And who would like to start?
Let my compadre from another state start off.
Yeah, Jeffro's joining us from Reno.
Hi, Jeffro.
Yeah. It's almost another state. It's far enough to be another state.
For sure.
Yeah. No, I mean, CJ Foxx basically kind of started as like a small group of artistic, hungry individuals. We got together, and it was with the mindset like, if we were to do it, this is how we would do it. And we all have like same like common interests, whether it's comic books, movies, film, different types of novel reading. You know, we all kind of enjoyed the same topics, the same interests, and so we got together and kind of just formulated like, hey, let's put a novel together and then put it on Amazon and then see how that can develop into more, or if it wasn't going to be successful, then we were gonna probably not well, we probably would still do it, but we probably just wouldn't be as thrilled with the results as we have been. It's actually, we've gotten a pretty good feedback and good the first novel came out in 2014, so we did that, and then once we published it, we just recently, I think we moved over about like 5,000 copies of the first book, which was Superhero Bowl 6, the advancement versus the bulbheads. And that one, like I said, just moved over like about 5,000 copies. And then the second novel that we continued like to get together, and we wanted to try some like a different genre. And the second one's like a murder mystery. And that one came out last year. That one's Friday, Bloody Friday. And we're still marketing that one while working on a sequel to that as we speak. But it's kind of just, like I said, a group source project. We just get together. We enjoy each other's company. We, just hang out. We would be hanging out and talking and doing stuff, with or without this project. But, it's actually kind of gives us a reason to spend more time with each other and to like, develop our craft together,
Well, I have a couple questions for you both. Chris is here in Las Vegas. You're in Reno, Nevada. So do you collaborate like via Messenger or on the phone, or?
We discussed it.
When we first started the project, we were both in Vegas. I mean,
Okay.
We were both, local with each other, and most of, I'd have to say 2/3 of all of our, components were in Vegas. We do have a couple people that do editing and like discuss, certain parts and proofread and help with different, ideas and aspects of the actual writing from different parts. It's not just from Vegas. So, me like moving to Reno kind of, went hand in hand with already the process that we already laid out,
Well, I met both of you at an event we did here in Las Vegas. That's been about 6 months ago, I guess.
Yeah, this was a very recent development. It was at the beginning of July that the move occurred. So,
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, it's been an interesting adjustment, but one that we were kind of equipped for anyway because of the nature of our approach.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you allowed to say how many are part of your group, or about how many? Like a dozen, half dozen?
It's really changing.
Yeah, it always changes from like project to project.
Yeah.
But how do people become part of your group?
Kind of just happens.
Yes. It's a blood oath. It takes place in a very dark room, and there's a lot of incense and a lot of yes, sir, may I have another stuff going on.
This is turning into a different type show, Jeffro.
No, it's a lot of it we all kind of had like we're like I went to school for, I mean, both me and Griffin went to, or Chris, but he also goes by Griffin. It's Chris.
Interchangeable.
We like we all have like nicknames. But anyway, Griffin. We all went to school together. We both got our degree from UNLV. I was an art major, and he was a business major. So we kind of like, we all had like we all had like a kind of like a social circle that we already kind of spent time with. And he was a musician and I was an artist, so we kind of have like an artistic background, and then we kind of once again we like our social circle like kind of already existed, and then it's like 7 degrees of separation. Someone always knew someone that was either in the field or someone that could help us out with different parts of it.
So which one of you has an author in the family?
What was that?
I don't think either of us have an author in the family,
Okay.
unless we're the author in the family that they're talking about.
Yeah, because I know you were here at the event with someone. I thought she was an aunt or something.
No, we have a lot of like I said, it's like 7 degrees of separation. We all kind of know somebody that knows somebody. I went to actually high school with Vicky Ann Bush.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
She's kind of our aunt in a way.
Yeah, she said you were. She told me she was your aunt.
Well, his aunt.
Exactly. She's, and we all look at it like we're almost family. It is that kind of, deep,
Dynamic,
we ride and die with each other. We're definitely, meant to be. We look at like a higher calling, like that had brought us together for these projects. It's something that. Me and Griffin believe that, every moment has value, and we try to like, record it, or, every person, has had that where they have like, a dream, or they have like a moment of inspiration, and they reach out to either me or Griffin or other parts of the circle. And they're like, oh, well, we should put this in, or I was just thinking of, how to get past this one, threshold into the next, part of the book and this and that. So, I feel like when we do author events and we do talk to other authors, we don't have so much as like the writer's block that other people have, because we have, and I think it kind of helps cure that side of it where, like one of us is always inspired,
Mm-hmm.
and so it helps us get past like it, and it helps motivate each other. Like one will motivate, the other, and then the other motivates, another to like get us past certain checkpoints in a story or in a novel. I think the drawback would be, that we sometimes have too much content. Sometimes we have too many, hands in the cookie jar, and we got to kind of, and that's what me and Griffin's job is to like,
slap the hands away.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Pull on the reins and be like, whoa, that's an awesome idea that might not make it, on this, it might not make it the cut on this project. Maybe, hey, it's something good for the next project. Maybe we'll shelve it. Maybe we'll, it'll make it, maybe it'll be transformed and it'll like, get something else started, but that's, once again,
I have a question, Jeff, for Joyce, because we were talking with Chris before we went on air, and we were talking about the two different groups here, like a panel or a progressive. We were trying to figure out what you guys do, and give us an idea, because I hadn't heard these. I didn't know there was a difference either. So why don't you explain the difference between a progressive group and a panel?
Oh, okay, certainly. Well, it's nice to meet both of you, even though we're doing it remotely. And
nice to meet you too.
Yes. A panel is a group of writers that come together for a common goal, and each writer gets a section of the book to develop. One might have the beginning, one might have the end, and let's say there's 3 writers, so the third one would develop the middle of the story. And they're on their own to develop each part of the story as they see it, and then they come back together after they have developed their own section, and they compare what they've done and meld it into a story. The other one, which is a progressive, let's say again, there's a group of writers, and someone starts out with an idea, and everything is good. Everything is to be heard, kind of like throwing paint on the wall. And a group of writers will sit around and decide, should we write about this? Should we write about that? So they all, usually on consensus, pick out an idea. And then they let the story decide where the story is going to go. And each person develops it as they see, but they do it as a group.
So that's no different than character writing. I mean, when you're writing, you let the characters in a book lead you sometimes. I write that way a lot.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think if we, once again, as artists, we try to, steer away from labels. But if we had to choose, I'd definitely say we're part of a progressive. It's Plan B. It's kind of how my day ended last night. Plan B. And I'm just joking. But anyway, but no, like the second one, the second option would probably be a better description of what we do. It's a very open. There's no limitations. If you want to work on the first part of it, if you have an idea with the first part of it, there's no boundaries. We don't set boundaries. We don't set anything. I mean, it's kind of like a powwow. We all get together. We all kind of just have the open discussion, and then me and Griffin kind of, have our own meeting outside of that. And then we basically are the ones that say, oh, well, what person A said was really good, and what person B said was not so much, and person C had a really good idea, but I think it fits better with this character as opposed to this one. I mean, we kind of me and Griffin are kind of like the funnel, but the before we funnel it into like the final product, the kind of imagery that we have as far as like, what this is, a bunch of like Post-it notes, scrap piece of paper, bar napkins, everything that, people just come up with like random stuff. And then it's me and Griffin's or Chris's, tumultuous job is to like, sort through it and sift through it and then find, once again, find the mine the gems out of.
So do you guys sit down together to do this?
Sometimes, but sometimes alone too.
And then they just submit what they've done?
They just submit, or they verbally discuss it too. It's very informal. Yeah. Sometimes written on back of a pizza box.
Okay.
Kind of thing.
Do you save them?
Well, they don't keep very well when you got
when there's still pizza stuff all over.
And stuff around.
Well, how do you, when you go out there and market the books? Well, there's two things. There's two questions here. One is, how do you go out there and market the book? I know we did the event here, but beyond that, other than just going to signings or whatever, how are you marketing the book? And my second question, you can answer whichever one you want, is, and when you do market the book and you sell the books, if you're a group, do you divide the money among the group? How does this work?
Well, in terms of how we advertise the book, I mean, we basically just right now doing a lot of advertising on Amazon with their marketing services.
Okay.
That's we've tried other avenues, but that seems to be the best one that's available for us at the moment, and that wasn't always the case. They didn't initially have that, especially during the time the Superhero Bowl came out. They didn't have that stuff set up. So we tried like Facebook and other things, but since our book's primarily on Amazon, that seems to be the best avenue for us because people.
And our website, cjfox.com.
Yeah, we've been to your website. We were looking it over. We were looking it over while Chris was waiting for us to open the door outside.
Yes, unfortunately.
Because
that's our fupa.
Like, hold on, we're surfing inside a little bit here.
Not the one that didn't say the number on it. Or, logic would dictate.
So how does this go? The money goes into a group, or what happens? How does that work?
Well, we don't want to piss off the tax man too. We got
no.
Keep it on,
keep everybody happy.
Keep it on the down low. Okay.
But basically, pretty much it goes back into
the revenue of the book. I would say pretty much just goes back into the projects. Like we do spend money, like advertising, and we do spend money going to events. Not necessarily going to events, but making bookmarks, doing giveaways, doing all sorts of, different inventive ways to get our book out there,
So this is just something of passion then. This isn't for monetary gain.
Not yet.
I mean,
There's an ultimate goal.
Always.
If we wanted it to be that way, I think like we could, we could just, pocket the money as, because the group of the people, they're not into it for the money. They're into it because, like I said, we were hanging out, talking about this stuff, enjoying these discussions. Meeting of the mind, this brain trust existed before the books did. So I mean, they would be doing it regardless.
Yeah.
So that's just like a bonus, like a kickback to them. Like, hey, the pizza's on us this time. You know what I mean? Like, we always bring up pizza. Like, that's our driving force.
Well, it sounds like it's a way of stirring everyone's interest in writing. It's like a way of getting the creative juices flowing.
Yeah.
So they can go out and do their own stuff, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. That's and when we're doing it, it is half and half. It is passion, but then it is nice to get that money to drive that passion.
Yeah.
And so like if we get one person in the group that like wasn't really into writing their own novel or their own project, and they became this and that because of our meetings and because of our our to-dos, then that's that makes it all worthwhile. Just like it was worthwhile when we're at the first book event and one person walks up and says, hey man, I really love this one scene with this one character, and they I wanted to see more of this one character, or this one scene, I thought it was so funny. There's no amount of money in the world that would be able that would be able to take that away from me. Like that's something that makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah.
Is just having that one person do that, let alone, it's something, like I said, that's sprouted up and become, much more successful than we thought it would be. Like the kind of feedback and the kind of response that we've gotten from people is it really makes it worthwhile, as I keep on saying. So, and then, like I said, the money that we get from the books, we, as much as, we could just, take the money and be like, okay, well, this is what we're doing now. We usually just take the money and then we supply it back into the group, back into like, we will, like I said, it's the resource. Yeah.
More pizza.
Yeah, more pizza. Basically, our pizza bills are pretty big. Like it is. And the group of people is. It reaches 5-6 people, and when we all hang out and we all get together, it is nice to see to reap the rewards. To sit there and take that money and then be able to show them like, hey, this is what we can do. This time we can go out to buy a round of Starbucks. We can do pizza. We can do a bowling night, and we can
B-dubs.
We're not paying anyone's rent yet, but it's one of those things where
Well, this is a little bit like a writer's group. The only difference is that with a writer's group, everyone comes in with their own work, and then everyone critiques their own work or goes over it. Whereas you guys, you create something together. But I do want to ask Joyce to explain who she is and what she does, so that our audience will know her experience with this.
Okay. Yes, good evening. My name is Joyce K. Gatchenberger. I publish under that name. I am working on my next book, and if the characters do cooperate, I will get it finished. Some days are better than others. I'm an author. I'm also a registered nurse. I've been an RN for 35 years. I'm also a military wife and have done extensive traveling. I also used to work at UNLV, maybe before you guys' time. I also took some graduate courses on the campus, so I understand what you're saying and I know the attitude of what you're talking about. But it's nice to meet both of you today.
And then Sid, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Sure. First off, both of you guys are very inspiring for me. Okay, because I come from the business world, and when I say business world, I'm seeing two entrepreneurs sitting in front of me. But you know what the difference is you guys are doing it with a passion.
Yeah.
And
Well, you do yours with a passion.
I
too.
do mine with a passion, and because I'm mixed in with the fashion world, and doing it more in the realm of being a business person. I oftentimes encounter people, artists, people who have more the creative edge, and I admire that because they're not chasing the dollar.
Yeah.
And I see the same with both of you.
But you are also you're aspiring to be a writer as well.
Yes, absolutely. And you know what? It's like I'd love to join your guild, but
Yeah.
I may never know where it's held.
An unknown
Yeah,
oath in a dark
Parts
hole.
unknown.
If you can figure out where the layer is.
That's right.
A lot of it more circulates through email, with the advent of technology, it's a lot of it's text messages, email, and then we get together, but it is something that, we kind of, we don't really have like a set, like, oh, well, it's every Wednesday between, 8 and 10. Mm-hmm. It's just something where it's like, oh, well, I'm free and person, the odd group people will be free one night, and then the even group people will be available the other night. And, and then sometimes none of them are available except for me and Griffin, and we do our own thing. And like I said, we call it final cut. Like we'll get together, me and him, and then we'll kind of decide. And it varies from project to project too. Like from when we started, we had, probably like a whole different cast of faces, comparing it to the project that we're at right now. It's, almost like a completely different group. It's a rotating, it's a, lazy Susan, as they call it, I guess. So there's not always the same people too, and it's not something that we like I said, we try to be very boundless with it. It's very open and it's very, understanding, and there's no such thing as a bad idea. Like I said, we're both artists. There's no such thing as bad art. It's just a matter of, finding a place for it and presenting it. Mm-hmm. That's you just need to be able to find a frame for it. And, no matter what idea you come up with, no matter what project you want to bring to the table, it's something that's always going to be, welcomed with open arms.
So in your books, it's always under CJ Foxx, and you never have anyone else's names on the book. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
So it pinnacles at both of you.
Yes, exactly. We are the mouth and the head of the monster.
Yes.
Yes, that's kind of how it kind of, because it, like I said, from the beginning, we would all just enjoy, an evening discussing, the latest, projects, or, the most recent, graphic novels that came out, or the most, one of us went to even sporting events. We would all go out and hang out at sporting events, and we would just sit there and talk, and, and oh, well, this is how, if I was, because, we all kind of have a little bit of writing background, or a little bit of inspiration of wanting to be a writer. And we would all talk about oh, well, I have this idea where oh, someone should, be, like a serial killer set in San Francisco, in modern day San Francisco, and then it just kind of it's like the little seedlings that get planted, and then we all kind of talk about it. And then one day me and Griffin were just hey, why don't we actually, put this into actual, physical, palpable form. So then that way, we can just, what's the worst that could happen type deal. It's like serendipity of sorts,
Yes.
And, once it kind of, like I said, took off, next thing like I said, we're, selling lots of copies. We're getting, invites to doing, different events and this and that. And yeah, me and Griffin are the CJ Foxx. We are the faces of it.
Well, we know what CJ stands for, but what about Foxx?
Foxx, we all decided it was we have a lot of Laker fans and Celtic fans, which is ironic that they hate each other. And I think it's kind of a very composite of what our project is. And we were thinking of naming it after a basketball player, because we all kind of enjoy sports as well. And like I said, we probably have more Lakers and Celtics fans in our group than anything else. And a player that played for both of them and was successful for playing for both of them was Rick Foxx. I don't know if anyone in the room knows who Rick Foxx is, but he's definitely, he was a very successful. He won championships as the Lakers. He had for a while the steal record for the most amount of steals in a game as the Celtics. So we kind of just put that at the end. It was kind of like just we kind of like the group that night came up with it, and then we emailed it off to the rest of the members, and they they signed off on it, and then there wasn't like a lot of the F stands for fairy tales, the O stands for outrage.
Okay, yeah.
It was just like
xylophone.
J Fox, and then we all
Xylophone.
Xenomorph.
and then we all like Jamie Foxx too. So like we put another X on the end because we thought it would just look a little bit more interesting than just one X. So
That's cool.
that was kind of like the background story to that. A lot of people think that there's like some kind of like outstanding fantastical background to that. But that was kind of, once again, it's just like a workshop. We just kind of, when it comes to that on the to-do list, we address it, as a group, and then whatever comes about as, like the leading, solution, that's what we go with, and we, we're not a group that looks back at anything and says, oh, we don't, like, a wise man once said to me, don't have regret, just have remorse. Just learn from whatever it is that you do and get better at it. But don't look backwards and say, oh man, I wish I could have done it that way. I wish I could have done it that way, this and that. That's so counterproductive to what we exist and what we do as, so we just try to just move forward, but, learn from, what we did and try to get better at it. In every book I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think we kind of, the projects kind of get a little bit more fluid, and they get a little bit more precise in what we want as far as the final product.
Sid, do you have any questions for him?
Yeah, I do. Actually, Griffin, maybe I can ask you, or even Jeffro, what would you?
He just wants to hear my voice.
Who?
He just wants to hear my voice.
Oh, okay. So question would be if you had young aspiring writers or new writers or somebody new to the field, how would and they liked what your model represents, how would they ever get in touch with you?
Well, they can email us at cjfoxpublications@gmail.com. Okay. I am pretty sure they can reach out to us through our website. They can buy our book, and then in the comment section leave a comment. That would be the most beneficial to both sides, Yeah. But I would just urge them to just continue working. A lot of people they'll write something and they don't realize the process and the difficulty it goes into writing something. And once they get into it, they kind of get overwhelmed by the size of being dwarfed by the project. And I would just tell them not to get not to get discouraged. Just every single day, write something, whether it's one word, whether it's one sentence, whether it's 5 pages. Just continue writing, and like I said, there's no such thing as bad art.
Don't give up on a project either. I have a children's book here that I started 20 years ago, and it just came into fruition. And a lot of times it's because not of my fault, but finding the right illustrator who can understand your concept and what you're trying to accomplish. And it's a little bit with what you do with your group, is that you're all trying to figure out what it is you're doing or where your characters are going. And so, but my advice is never give up on a project, ever.
Oh, yeah.
And there will always be naysayers out there who'll say something like, well, where are they going? What can they do? And my advice to there is prove them wrong. Show them what you can do. So
exactly. That was exactly where I was going to go with it, is, you know, don't leave it to other people to tell you, you know, how good your stuff is, or how, you know, like, it's always good to have a critique, and always good to have, like, you know, someone to be able to, you know, basically, you know, you have to be able to take feedback. You have to have and be very, very understanding of compromise. I mean, if this little group of ours, if it teaches us anything, it's compromise. You know, like Griffin knows more than anyone, as far as me, the saying that we have, and
kill your darlings.
Kill your darlings. Exactly. We finish each other's
sandwiches.
See, I knew he was going to say that too.
Well, I have a question, and maybe Jethro or maybe Chris, you can answer this. In fact, 2 questions came up for me. One was, since this is a group project that you work on, how do you know when you've come to the end of the story or the end of the book? That's one question. And the other one would be, what is the average age of the group that you work with?
Oh, good.
I don't know if I've done an average age thing. I mean, there's youngsters and there's old people in our group.
What's old people?
Well,
I think of myself as a fairly old individual,
yeah,
even though I
right.
look much younger than I actually am.
Or did I ask a question, or did I ask?
But as terms of how, at least from my perspective on it, the story kind of, a lot of the characters kind of, they tell their stories, and they want to know what's going on, and they'll just kind of let you know when you're at the end of the story. And sometimes they'll tell you that they're not at the end of the story, and you have to write something else, or they'll just know this is where you want to just put the pen down.
Yeah, the characters actually drive it. They're the ones who lead it. That I really do like that way as well. I let the characters lead me.
Yeah.
So go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was, you know, I didn't know if the question was more of like a demographic of like what's the age group of people that like read the book, or that, what was it? The question.
I think the members.
Yeah, the members.
Yeah, the members. The members.
Yeah, we definitely have an eclectic age group that writes the book too. I mean,
Sid has a chance.
Yes, I do have a chance somewhere. I'm not giving up.
No, I mean,
never give up, never surrender.
Never. That's right.
And it seems like the older, you know, people have more of the drive in our group, and then the younger has more of the creativity. You know what I mean?
Good.
And in art, there's always the 2 sides of it, of the skill versus the talent. You know, and I think, like, you know, when it comes to the people that have a little bit more experience in life, have a little bit more skill. They've spent a lot of time refining what it is that they know, and you know, spending a lot of time gaining, researching, knowing, you know, so that way when they have an opinion, it's like, okay, well, you know, everyone set everything down and know what's going on.
Do you guys know what icky horror is?
What was that?
Icky horror, that genre?
The kind of horror that Icky Woods writes?
No, I just am curious because I had someone on named Russell Holbrook, which you might want to look him up. He's a character. Russell writes icky horror, and I was just curious if you guys had heard it. I don't know.
Kind of horror isn't icky. I mean, isn't that kind of the point of what
or
horror
bizarro
is?
horror? Maybe it's bizarro horror.
Yeah, no,
then it wouldn't be horror if it was bizarro horror. Then
that's why you got to look this guy up.
Extreme.
I swear, Russell Holbrook. Just look him up.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know, we definitely do a lot of events, and we kind of run into a lot of different subgenres. So I wouldn't be surprised if we actually, you know, have had some experience with someone that either, you know, writes or is part of that circle or has read it, you know. But, you know, that's the thing too, is like we have a lot of different, you know, I mean, as far as we all have a common interest, we also have people that are from different walks of life. And, you know, some people want to go real wild and real, you know, left with a lot of stuff, and a lot of people want to keep it, you know, a little bit more to like the traditional, you know, A to B style, you know. And that's like I said, that's the everlasting battle of what we deal with compared to, you know, the traditional author is you know, and trying to find that middle ground for everyone. Like I said, compromise and understanding, you know, what's going to make it and what's not going to make it, and don't take it personal, you know. Like that's kind of how we, you know, that's like kind of like our motto, and that's, that helps me and Griffin as well, like, as a constant reminder to like let people know, like, hey, like, like it's not necessarily like, a bad idea, there's no such thing as a bad idea. It's just that it's not going to fit. It's kind of like a square peg into a round hole type deal, and that's, like and so, we always, and that's, they always talk about like the selling model. You don't want to make your own genre, because then how are you going to sell that? How is it going to fit onto a shelf and this and that? But we try to like be, as very open-minded as far as a genre. I mean, our last book was murder mystery, but at the same time, like there's different aspects of it that could, that could definitely be a little bit more a thriller, that could be a little bit more, horror, there's definitely like, or thrasher or a slasher, there's a lot of, different aspects to, like the group writing that we do, that we try to narrow it down to market it. But at the same time, when you read it, I think, and then like I was going to like circle it like to the demographic that, like, and it's like when we wrote the first book, it was Superhero Bowl. It was, a sci-fi fantasy, and it was meant, what we were thinking of like young adult, we were like writing it thinking that, like that, tween to like, young 20s is that's, people are going to gobble that up, but then just like ComicCon, just like you do events and all that stuff, you start to realize that, a lot of the older age group really attracts to that, because just think about like, us, like me, like I was, I'm older than 20s, like in my 30s, and I, spent my adolescence reading comic books, and now when I'm older, like I, definitely, I look, into that kind of stuff, and I, attract to that stuff.
Well, I just went to the Star Trek convention, and you would be amazed at, well, first of all, I was amazed at the number of young people there, because Star Trek was from the 60s. And then now, you still have that following that follows Star Trek. So you see everyone from every walk of life, from every age group at those conventions.
Next generation.
But you also had those movies that just came out.
Well, that's true,
years
too.
ago,
And like you
too,
said, there's
so-
different new Star Treks now as well.
You realize that the young kids
there's actually
that
a
were at
reference.
that think that they were new. They don't understand that it used to be, as they say back in the day. So they don't understand that it's old made new.
Well,
They just think
old
it's
is new
new.
again.
Yeah.
But the young kids there don't understand that.
Wide ties are back in.
There you go.
Yeah, in our novel, we actually like we addressed like a ongoing feud that like split our little like circle in half, like directly. It was almost like a pie chart, like 50-50 of like Shatner fans versus Patrick Stewart fans.
Oh.
And we put that in the book. Like that's exactly, we had almost like fisticuffs over, like what was better, the original Star Trek or Star Trek Generations. And it was so like, personal, and it was so, like it passionate. People were so passionate about it. We're like, well, that, why not we put that in the book? And it kind of like, there's like, in like a murder mystery, how do you squeeze that in? But
You would at the very beginning when nobody's looking.
yeah, exactly. That's kind of like our intro to it, is two guys sitting there arguing about, who's better, Patrick Stewart or William Shatner. But that's like I said, that's the kind of tone that we have in that story. But you'd be surprised, and like I said, to piggyback, what you were saying earlier, you'd be surprised when we write the murder mystery. We thought that was going to be, just nothing but adults, and we kind of made it a little bit more racy than the first one. There's a little bit more language and a little bit more of like, it's kind of like got like crime scene investigation, and there's a little bit of a little bit of gore and a little bit of violence in it, a little bit,
Well, I want to ask you both something, and this is to encourage people who are out there thinking they want to write, but they're uncertain of how to go about it, or do I have the background for it? You both have college degrees, but what was your degree in? Was it in journalism?
No.
No?
No, you said earlier, my degree was in business.
So completely different, and that's my point I'm trying to make. Joyce was an RN for 35
Yeah.
years. So
A fine art degree, you know, like I knew how to paint portraits. I mean, I used to write and illustrate comic books, and I think that kind of really like fed into what I do now, you know, and that's, you know, like between Griffin's business degree and my experience in illustrating and writing comic books, I think is what really, you know, like, you know, sparked the you know, and made and kindled the fire.
So you've always been a writer then. If you've been working with comic books, that's a story.
Oh, yeah. No, that's something that I used to, you know, I won't mention the publishing company that I was with because they are no longer, they got absorbed by a bigger one, and that was kind of one thing or another. But you know, like once that happened, I kind of made a decision, and that's when I met Griffin, where it was like, okay, well, I could, you know, follow some other people into, you know, another comic book, you know, publisher, or I could, you know, just do something else that I like found out that I had a passion for, which was the writing side of the comic books, you know. And that's why the first one was Superhero Bowl, because that was kind of like, you know, it's not all just superhero-y and you know, action-y and all that stuff. There's a lot more. There's like Greek mythology that's you know, it's sewn into it. There's a lot of, you know,
time travel elements.
Yeah, there's a lot of high concept you know, stuff into it, but it's, you know, regardless, that was kind of, you know, that was why we kind of like experimented with that project, because it was like, that was probably like the biggest factor that put this group together, was that a lot of us were into comic books, and a lot of us were into writing, you know, and then that was kind of where that project came about, and the success from that project just turned it into like straight up hardcore, we love writing and we're gonna die doing it type deal, you know. And we don't care if we sell another book, we're still gonna write, and we're still gonna be here doing
it's about
this.
the passion.
Exactly.
Have you ever considered taking your whole concept and your books to other countries?
To other countries?
Mm-hmm.
We sell. I mean, we
Amazon sells everywhere, man.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
you've put the book into Japanese, and
well, we haven't done that yet.
Okay.
We have not. That is something that
It's only English.
Yeah.
You there, dude?
That's something
Yeah,
that we're,
I get what you're saying, Sid, but the way it works, we just did a show on this actually
Yeah,
with two people.
We did.
Today, we're one world. When it comes to the writing industry, and by the way, it doesn't matter. If you go to Australia, they have one dialect. If you go to Great Britain, they have a different dialect. No matter where you go in the world, they have a dialect. But the thing is that some people, like we just spoke to Pat Ritter from Australia. His biggest audience is in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter that someone might not know what a drover is, because you're going to look it up and you're going to find out that's a cowboy
or a trolley.
Well, westerns are big.
Or a
Westerns
lolly.
are big in the United States. So, you know, yeah. Or like we were talking to the other person who was a truck driver. What was it
a
called?
lolly.
A lolly, which is a truck driver in the United States. But your followers or your fans, they're going to know these things because they're little elements that you can get past. If you enjoy the story, you're going to look it up and find out anyway. So you really do have an international audience. I don't care where you are.
Yeah. No, I think that, you know, and like to making it like a little bit more curtailed to different cultures, that is definitely something that, you know, we're open to. It's just like one of those things where, you know, we'll cross that bridge when we get to a type deal. We're just still, you know, getting into like the process part of it, of creating, you know, these novels. You know, what happens after we have, you know, page 1 to page, you know, the final chapter. You know, after the aftermath of it, that's something that we're fine tuning, you know. But, you know, what's important to us is that we, you know, continue this process, because it feels like, you know, we got something here. Like it's something that, you know, it's you know, you know, the as I say it, it's like the unspoken, you know, like, you know, the lightning in a bottle type thing, where we have that, you know, and it's like we have all of these different, you know, like pieces of you know, awesomeness that we're trying to, like, you know, put together for an audience. But at the same time, like, you know, once we finalize it, that's, you know, something that we're a little bit more you know, open to, you know, advice and open to like trying to find out how to market it better to different cultures, to this and that. But I mean, we sell a decent amount overseas, with UK, Australia, like we when we upload them to Amazon, we actually we
never restrict who can get our
who has access to it.
Yeah. Amazon's open to everybody.
I think he was just talking about for a language, like translating to Chinese or Mandarin, translating into Spanish, because those are the two biggest languages in the world. First Mandarin, then Spanish, and then English. So I think he was just trying to say, what are you trying to approach? But the interesting thing about that is, in a lot of countries, they have 2 languages or 3 languages, so they may already be speaking English anyway.
Yes.
That's why you do have an audience, no matter where you are in the world.
And especially with your whole model that you both gentlemen are putting together, it's amazing, because this whole secret society that you've put together,
it's kind of interesting.
You'd have this incredible following from other countries, all wanting to know what it's all about.
Yeah, who is CJ Foxx?
Yeah.
Because I know when Chris came in, I was trying to get out of him, who is CJ Foxx?
Right.
And he was very elusive.
He
but
held the code. You'd be proud of him.
It's like a big secret. But I get it. I get why now. I understand now.
To dabble on that too, like in our last novel, Friday Bloody Friday, all of the chapters, like 1 through I think it's 21. I don't know how many.
I think it's more than that, but I don't remember.
Yeah, whatever. Exactly. It starts off at 21 and ends at 40. But anyway, they're all in Japanese, because one of the members in our group is fluent in Japanese.
Amazing.
And she went to school for it, and you wouldn't be able to tell by looking at her, but she can have like a full on and Griffin has spent a couple at least a couple trips overseas in Japan.
Yeah.
So he was knowledgeable of that as well. So we thought that was and it plays into the actual story as well. So I mean, there's a Japanese influence in the actual subtext of our story. And so each chapter marker is there in Japanese. So that kind of plays into like you said, it plays into the culture of the whole thing. No man is an island as far as our book and how we write. Everyone has a piece and something that goes into it. In the first book, we pepper like crazy. We probably think when we were writing it that would probably upset a lot of the readers, because they, for people who don't know Spanish, there's a couple of our members that, are pretty fluent in Spanish. I mean, especially, these days, it's just pretty, you take Spanish, most of us in school,
Right.
So every once in a while we would just change one of the words to Spanish, the Spanish, he put his feet on the escritorio, which is, Spanish for desk, and we just did it just to play around, just because it was a nod to, who we are as a group, where it's there's no, we're very open-minded, and we're very, just happy to have the different cultures and diversity, and experience that in our project and in our process. Absolutely.
Well, and the syntax will carry the word anyway. I have an author who writes historical fiction, and hers is about Italian and Irish immigrants back in the turn of the century in 1900s, and she uses Italian words. She uses Irish slangs.
Exactly.
But you can tell by the sentence really what she's talking about. Now that I didn't think of that, but you don't even have to figure it out. From what she's talking about, or he's talking about.
Exactly. That's how it goes. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I have a question. You mentioned ComicCon, okay, and you obviously debuted something there. You debuted maybe your book, or perhaps did a signing, but. Did you ever have any of your characters lived out by people who dress the part?
No, we've one of the members of our group, actually the same one that speaks fluent Japanese, likes to do cosplay.
Okay.
she's brought it up multiple times, and we've done the Las Vegas ComicCon. We attended that,
Yes.
but we never went to the actual San Diego one because we don't feel like giving like a golden arm to like, you know, go and try to get into like, it's either about like who you know and you know, all of that, you know, there's a lot of politics to get into the San Diego one, obviously. I mean, they're like premiering, you know, Aquaman movies, you know, like there's a little space for the up and coming, you know.
Well, it's expensive to get a table.
Well, that too.
Exactly. If you're not like connected, then you have to buy your way in, and you know, even if we have the money, we think that we probably could use that money for, you know, a better cause as far as like our group, you know, goes. But we did the Las Vegas event, you know, and you know, we've had offers of people doing the cosplay and dressing up as characters from our story. But, you know, once again, we haven't had that happen, like come to real life. But, you know, we get a lot of fan art. And I used to, we have a CJ Foxx author on Twitter. We do have a Twitter and a Facebook. You could go onto our Facebook page and like that. We do post fan art, and that's something that's really like, you know, it gets you in a little spot, you know, oh, that's, you know, like you never think you would see it, like, you know, and being like an artist and being like an actual comic book illustrator back in the day, like you know, like that's kind of like a, you know, like a small, you know, space in my heart for that kind of stuff, you know, to get actual fan art, you know, of one of your characters, or, you know, like someone draw something that, you know, that you like mapped out, you know. And so, you know, we've posted it on Twitter and Facebook, but, you know, a lot of that was more for our book that came out 2014. We don't really get so much of it as much more these days, you know, since we switched over to the murder mystery, you know.
Maybe something to look back at if we decided to write Superhero Bowl 7. Maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Then we'll with the experience of the first one, we'll know, you know, what avenues that we can entertain a lot more for when we make a sequel to that one. But, you know, right now we're making a sequel for the second book, since that one, you know, caught a lot of attention and brought a lot of people to, you know, letting us know that they, you know, would definitely, you know, enjoy a sequel to the second book. So
I'm going to tell you a story that's very similar to what you do, and I didn't realize it until we were talking, because this happened 20 years ago, before the internet. And, well, it had just started. And back then...
Before it was the sparkle in Al Gore's eyes.
DOS. When you were using DOS and you went on... No. But on the internet, I remember one of the very first sites where you could go and post a project. And my first novel was called The Emblem. And I put it on there. Got the idea that I was going to independently produce my own film. And so I put that out there. I kid you not. I've got videos from all over the world for people who wanted to be in that movie. I actually had a video photographer in New York who was on my site, ordered the book, liked the book. He met up with a guy in Germany who wanted to play a lead. His girlfriend the guy in New York's girlfriend was from Germany. So they said, you know what, why don't I take my 35 millimeter, think about this, my 35 millimeter camera to Germany, hook up with him in Munich. We can film a few scenes, put together a trailer so we can go out there and market the book. Not only did that happen, but Al Gore's niece, Rosemary Gore, is an actress. And she got the book. She said, I want to play the part of Molly. So then what happened was that there was another guy named, his last name was actually Nash. He wanted to play this part of Stuart Nash. He was an actor. They met up together. They lived 20 miles apart. They met up together, went to the theater where she studies acting. Her coach helped them do their scene together. All this was brought to me to Las Vegas, Nevada, and not one penny was spent, by the way. And we actually put together a movie trailer for that book.
My goodness.
And this is like 35 millimeter. I was blown away when this guy told me that he would go with his 35 millimeter camera to Germany and do that. So it's amazing how if a group of people get together, like what you guys are doing, you never know what can come out of this. I mean, you know, when you get people who are creative together, just plant a little seed, anything can happen.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
So do you give aliases to any of your mystery writers?
Do we have any aliases? I mean, like, you know, we don't really like make
Let
up
them-
names for them. I mean, they're like, we have like, you know, like just they're just like kind of normal contacts.
Yeah,
you
we know who
like
they are.
contacts with a cell phone. How many people have cell phones that have contacts with people that they don't even call? You know, the difference between that and us is that we actually call them and we ask them, "Oh, what do you think about this? If I email you this, will you give me your honest opinion about it?" You know, I mean, a lot of people I think build it up to like being like it's. You know, I think it's just like people just have the lack of just not like, you know, they're afraid of what people are going to say or what people are getting the response or something like that. And, you know, we just try to bust through that, you know, it's like, hey, like, you know, there's, you know, we don't judge. This is a judge free zone, you know, like that's, you know, and we, you know, we actually like, you know, look forward to people contacting and reaching out to us. And, you know, we don't, you know, avoid like our phone calls and text messages. Oh, I'm busy. You know, what you mean? Like you're sitting there, you know, watching Lion King for the 60th time. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You're busy, you know, like it's, you know, one of those things where, you know, not that Lion King isn't a great movie, but it's something that like we need, you know, I mean, like we just, you know, but I mean, we don't have like aliases, you know, for them. It's just that we, you know, I mean, they don't even like, you know, I mean, we have like a friend, Kelsey, we have, you know, a friend, Courtney, we have a friend that is Will or William. We have, you know, like multiple sources that, you know, that we reach out to, you know, that we like, you know, contact them. And
So do you do an acknowledgement in the books?
no, not
being
really.
CJ
Like
is the acknowledgement.
Okay, so that's
Yeah,
basically what
exactly.
represents the group is CJ Foxx.
It's like a band name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Okay.
Me and Griffin would stay out of it as much as we could, except for the fact that we have to like do interviews and go to book signings and, you know, do stuff. We would be at, that's why it's called CJ Foxx and not, you know, Griffin
Right.
and Jeff.
Right.
You know, that was the reason for a pen name is all, you know, I mean, like CJ Foxx is the whole, you know.
Yeah, Jeffro, I hate to cut you short, but we're running down to the last minute of the show. So I'd like to thank Chris and Jeffro for being on. Where can we learn more about your books?
CJFox.com.
Okay.
Yep.
And they're available on Amazon.
It's available on
Hit us
Amazon.
up on Twitter and Facebook.
Okay, all right. I'd also like to thank my co-hosts Joyce K. Gatchenberger and Sal Saldana for being on the show with us today. To find more about our guests, just go to the website aspectsofwriting.com. There you will find at least their books. I won't post their pictures. And you can click on the book. It'll take you to their books on Amazon. You can learn more about our show at aspectsofwriting.com. We're on iHeartRadio, iTunes, amfm247.com. We air live on amfm247.com at 1 o'clock on Saturdays. We're also on Roku TV, 14 different terrestrial stations. So just go to aspectsofwriting.com to learn more. So until next week, this is your host, James Kelly, reminding you, if you can dream it, you can write it. Thank you.
Thank
you, guys.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go Rebels.